Greetings and welcome to the ViralClear Leadership Conference Call. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. A question and answer session will follow the formal presentation. If anyone should require operator assistance during the conference, please press *0 on your telephone keypad. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded. I would now like to turn the conference over to Andy Ballou, VP of Investor Relations of BioSig Technologies. Thank you. Please begin.
Thank you, operator, and thank you all for participating in this morning. Presenting on today's call is Ken Londoner, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of BioSig Technologies, Nick Spring, the Chief Executive Officer of ViralClear Pharmaceuticals, Steve King, the Chief Operating Officer of ViralClear Pharmaceuticals, and Dr. Jerry Zeldis, the Founder and Executive Chair of ViralClear Pharmaceuticals and a BioSig board member. I'll remind everyone that on this call, the presenters may make forward-looking statements. Such statements may be preceded by the words intends, may, will, plans, expects, anticipates, projects, predicts, estimates, aims, believes, hopes, potential, or similar words. Forward-looking statements are not guarantees of future performance, are based on certain assumptions, and are subject to various known and unknown risks and uncertainties, many of which are beyond the company's control and cannot be predicted or quantified, and consequently actual results may differ materially from those expressed or implied by such forward-looking statements. Such risks and uncertainties include, without limitation, risks and uncertainties associated with 1, our inability to manufacture our products and product candidates on a commercial scale on our own or in collaboration with third parties. 2, difficulties in obtaining financing on commercially reasonable terms. 3, changes in the size and nature of our competition. 4, loss of one or more key executives or scientists. And 5, difficulties in securing regulatory approval to market our products and product candidates. More detailed information about the company and the risk factors that may affect the realization of forward-looking statements is set forth in the company's filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, including the company's annual report on Form 10-K and its quarterly reports on Form 10-Q. Investors and security holders are urged to read these documents free of charge on the SEC's website at www.sec.gov. The company assumes no obligation to publicly update or revise its forward-looking statements as a result of new information, future events, or otherwise. I will now turn the call over to Ken Londoner.
Thank you, and thank you for all joining us this morning. We are here today to talk mostly about our new subsidiary, ViralClear, and also provide a brief update on BioSig and our Pure EP system. After a brief introduction, I will turn the call over to the ViralClear team to give you all a bit more detail on the drug candidate Vicromax and its development and proposed path through the FDA. Vicromax was owned by Trek Pharmaceuticals, which our board member Dr. Jerry Zeldis founded. The drug candidate was in the FDA process of development as an antiviral to treat chronic hepatitis C. The drug completed through phase 1 trials and phase 2 trials and showed some activity for this chronic viral infection. Jerry was a co-founder and major investor in Trek Therapeutics and was attempting to create a novel, highly effective, and affordable treatment for chronic hepatitis C. One of the drugs that it acquired was Vicromax. Upon the onset of the COVID-19 epidemic, I was speaking with Jerry, and he stated that Vicromax might be active against the COVID-19 coronavirus. Jerry reached out to some contacts that had access to the virus. It was tested and showed great promise with marked reduction in viral production in cell culture. We both then thought, wow, this might be a contribution or a solution to the problem that the world is facing, and we ought to be able to bring it to market fairly quickly, as it had already been through phase 1 and phase 2 trials. In light of the crisis that was quickly unfolding around us, we immediately brought this to the board's attention and determined that we could rapidly help launch this company and this product. With the strength of our board of directors, our status as a public company, and our ability to raise capital, we decided to proceed. The BioSig board voted several weeks ago, and Jerry and I were not included in this vote, to purchase the assets from Trek into a subsidiary to help fund and rapidly launch ViralClear as a company and Vicromax as a course of treatment for the novel coronavirus COVID-19. The strategy is to fund ViralClear through direct investment into the subsidiary ViralClear and not through sales of BioSig stock, and then spin ViralClear out onto the public market on the NASDAQ pending approval as its own entity with BioSig shareholders getting an ownership in this newly formed public company. To be clear, BioSig itself is well funded. We ended last year with just over $12 million in cash, and then in late February, we closed on a $10 million common stock equity placement. So we have been able to advance the project and have already begun the process with our auditors and lawyers to spin the subsidiary out. Please look to our upcoming announcements and public filings as more details on this process become available. I would like to now turn the call over to Nick Spring, CEO of ViralClear, to introduce his team and tell us more about Vicromax and the expected timeline to market. Thank you.
Hi, this is Nick Spring, CEO of ViralClear. Our goal is to provide you with an overview, and if you're interested, to get you a list of contacts that you can reach out for more information. I'd now like to introduce the team, starting with Dr. Jerry Zeldis. Jerry, please tell the participants about yourself.
Hi, I'm Jerry Zeldis. I've been in pharmaceuticals since 1995 and participated in shepherding 9 drugs, including Revlimid for multiple myeloma through initial approval. I've worked on an equal number of drugs and succeeded in obtaining supplemental NDAs. I'm an MD PhD and by training a gastroenterologist. I am founder and chair of ViralClear.
Thanks very much indeed, Jerry. Steve, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Nick, and thank you for everyone for being on the call. My name is Steve King. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of ViralClear. My background is that I'm a pharmacist by profession with over 35 years of experience in drug development and commercialization in the US and Europe. My role is to make the supplies needed for the clinical studies and commercial supply.
Thank you, Jerry and Steve. As you'll see, we're all about focus and speed. This company has been together for about 25 days, and I think you'll be impressed with what we've achieved and where we can get to. Background on me. I'm a life sciences undergrad, business postgrad, a former exec with Merck, and worked all around the world for them for about 23 years. And very relevantly, my last situation there was leading the global antiviral vaccines franchises, as well as, prior to that, being instrumental in being able to build several billion-dollar global franchises, including leading the planning team that planned the launch of HPV vaccine in the USA, Gardasil. Post-Merck, I founded Topaz Pharmaceuticals, and I took that company from pre-IND right through phases 1, 2, 3, and to a PDUFA filing and successful NDA granting. Over 6.5 years, we did that and sold the company after raising some $36 million privately for over $200 million. After that, I was the CEO of a med devices company called Reliefband Technologies. So that's our team, and I think you'll agree, a very experienced team that can bring a lot of professionality to this particular venture. Now, I'm going to turn to what we're doing now, and one of the things that I wanted to make very clear is that 3 weeks ago, Jerry, myself, and Steve were doing other day jobs, and Jerry gave us a call and said there's something we can do about this pandemic and have access to a molecule. The molecule is called merimibudib, or MMPD for short. The more I learned about it, the more I'm convinced that MMPD would help out and not only be the foundation for a current business, but a future great business too. Until we perform human trials that will start soon, we will not know the true dimension of its clinical activity for COVID-19. However, based on our preclinical testing, we believe that we have the clinical significance as a single agent and combined with other antiviral and immune modulatory agents. If we observe what we expect, we are optimistic that governments around the world are not going to allow the economic system to come to its knees again, and they're going to start stockpiling drugs like ours. And certainly my experience at Merck Vaccines Division is that governments stockpile a number of vaccines to curb the eventuality of certain diseases such as measles, mumps, and rubella. We have accomplished quite a bit in the last 25 days. Many of us are working around the clock. In less than 2 weeks, the due diligence was completed. The BioSig board approved the purchase of Vicromax to be placed into Neurocleared subdivision, and the deal was closed. The team that Jerry recruited is a proven management team. ViralClear has a robust intellectual property estate. Overall, we have a winning formulation, a great drug, a great team, and a rapid path into the clinic. Using focus and speed, we have accomplished more in 25 short days than most companies accomplish in more than 6 months. We expect to file the IND round in the next few weeks. This means that we should be in human trials in May. If all goes well, we might be in pivotal phase of development over the summer. The actual timelines are fluid based on a variety of factors, including what is observed in the clinic. Now, I'll turn back the call to Ken.
Thank you, everybody. It's been a real pleasure working with the team on this project. During the isolation period, I know many of us have been putting in some extremely long days to advance ViroClear forward, and we see how important it is to the world. I would like to take a minute here before we go to Q&A to let our long-term shareholders know that BioSig's focus on pure EP and our signal processing platform has not been diluted during this time. Many of our team have been working forward with sales initiatives, though this has been somewhat interrupted, as you can imagine, by the pandemic. The trials that Pure EP was working on, although halted for now due to government order, yielded some great information. This has helped us solidify stronger understanding of the value of our technology. This has come from our team and the close work with the amazing doctors that have had the opportunity to work with us in this field. Much of this will become clear through the upcoming publication of articles that discusses experience with Pure EP in our field. We expect some of this to be published shortly, so please look to our website as we will post these articles there as soon as they are published. I also want to assure you that myself and the entire team remain in close contact with all of our EP labs across the country. We are highly encouraged that once we're on the other side of this pandemic, medical institutions will see the value and the need to add Pure EP to their electrophysiology labs. This is still the main goal of BioSig, and in 2020, it's a year we are projecting commercial uptake and revenue recognition that will build as we see continued proliferation of our core technology. Just this morning, we got approval from the Mayo Clinic to have Dr. Andrew Badley join us to speak on his medical and scientific thoughts on the target, molecule, mechanism of action, and the clinical trial plan for ViroClear, as well as any other topics he deems relevant. As part of this privilege, we've been asked to state that the Mayo Clinic is considering a financial investment in ViroClear Pharmaceuticals, and therefore Mayo has at least a potential conflict. Now I would like to turn the call over to Dr. Andrew Badley from the Mayo Clinic, and thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Ken and team, for inviting me. By way of background, I'm a physician scientist at Mayo Clinic. I'm the professor and chair of the Department of Molecular Medicine. I am a professor and associate chair of the Department of Medicine, where I see patients in the Infectious Disease Division. I've run an immunovirology lab for the past 25 years and continually NIH funded during that period of time. Relating to the current COVID outbreak, I am the enterprise chair of the COVID task force. We are tasked with overseeing all domains of research associated with COVID, from clinical trials to translational studies to epidemiology and everything else. In that capacity, I've reviewed over 50 therapeutic protocols, and I am tasked with prioritizing those and determining which ones we should enter into the clinic. By way of further background, Mayo Clinic Enterprise consists of 4 dominant sites: Mayo Clinic Rochester, Mayo Clinic Arizona, Mayo Clinic Florida, and the Mayo Clinic Health System, which is a series of smaller hospitals throughout the Midwest. It is our goal as we recruit trials to Mayo Clinic to enroll them across all 4 sites. I've been involved in discussions with Ken and Jerry and the team and am quite familiar with MMPV. It is a valuable therapeutic target. It targets RNA-dependent RNA polymerases. It's shown activity against a broad cross-section of RNA viruses, including hepatitis C. It has satisfactory safety data from about 350 patients treated with hepatitis C. And importantly, it's shown in vitro activity against the SARS-CoV-2, coronavirus 2, at doses which are achievable in humans, specifically around 3.3 micromolar. In my capacity overseeing the task force at Mayo Clinic, we review patients every day to determine which studies are open and available and which studies individual patients could be eligible for. And I think that there's an opportunity for the development of an oral antiviral, which is not yet met. And so I think that the MMPV compound, when tested in clinical trials, if successful, could fill an important niche. And I'll end my comments there.
Thank you, Dr. Badley. And operator will be ready to take questions. Thank you.
Hi there.
Thank you.
While we're waiting for questions, this is Nick Spring again here. From the audience, we'll answer a couple of more common questions that have come up since we announced this news on March the 25th. The first that we get commonly is that this drug has been sitting on the shelf since 2004. So what makes it so good now? I'll turn that question over to Jerry.
Thank you, Nick. MMP's pharmacological action is ideally suited to stop the propagation of rapidly expanding viral infections. The drug has been shown to be very active for a number of viruses that in the acute phase of the infection are manifested by rapid spread of the disease in the body, including viruses that cause Ebola, Zika, and Lassa fever. MMP's pharmacology is not suited for chronic viral infections. Although some activity was observed for chronic hepatitis C, the real sweet spot for this agent is for treating an infection caused by the novel coronavirus. Based on our tissue culture results, we believe that the drug exposure obtained with the old formulation will be significant enough to affect viral production. Our initial findings will be published in the next day or two online on the RXIV website, and we will give the link to that article once it becomes available. We are in parallel changing the formulation so we can deliver more drug. I'd like to take one quick moment to thank BioSig and Ken London in particular for creating a mechanism for ViroClear to rapidly develop MMPD so that it can get into patients and hopefully show that it could be a welcome adjunct to therapy.
Thank you very much indeed, Jerry. And another question that we've been asked is, as a startup company, how do you intend to get product made and commercialized? Hey, Steve, could you enlighten us on that one, please?
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Our plan is to use a virtual drug development model using contract manufacturing resources in the USA and Europe for both the MMPD drug substance and the final product. This process is already underway and is supported by an experienced team of drug development and commercial consultants in formulation, analytical, chemistry, regulatory, clinical, and supply chain. The good news is that we already have MMPD and we are starting to make product for the initial studies and the pivotal studies which will follow. At the same time, we're contracting with companies to make materials in the US and Europe required for the commercial launch. Our strategy is to use multiple vendors to ensure the supplies we need for launch and also decrease the risk.
Thank you, Steve. Let's go back to the operator now, Andy, for Q&A.
Thank you. At this time, we will be conducting a question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone keypad. For participants using speaker equipment, it may be necessary to pick up your handset before pressing the star keys. A confirmation tone will indicate your line is in the question queue. You may press star 2 if you would like to remove yourself from the queue. One moment, please, while we poll for your questions. Our first question comes from the line of Gary Zwetchenberg of Plumtree Consulting. Please proceed with your question.
Thank you. Good morning, Ken, Andy, and Dr. Zeldas. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to update us on developments with Vicromax. And my question initially is, you mentioned how ViroClear is positioned to be spun off later this year. I would appreciate if you can give me an idea how exactly will this affect BioSig Technologies and shareholders, the parent company?
I'll hand it over to Ken. Ken, could you answer that question, please?
Yes. Thank you, Gary. We're going to be filing an S-1 registration statement with the SEC within the next few weeks, which will register the shares of ViralClear in the markets. As far as other terms and conditions around the spin, we're not today prepared to answer that question, but just stay tuned over the next few weeks and it'll become clearer to the public.
And I just had a corollary to that question on Vicromax. Could you talk about how that compares with Gilead's or Regeneron's on their candidates that are in getting into the market?
Yes, I'll hand that question across to Jerry, please. Could you answer for Gary?
Firstly, I just want to state that we need more than one antiviral agent to address this pandemic. Experience has shown with other viruses that viral-directed therapies often result in the escape of a mutant virus which becomes resistant to whichever agent is used as monotherapy. When you combine more than one agent together, the risk of such escape mutants is much, much less. This has been shown with influenza, hepatitis C, HIV, and I can go on. We believe, first of all, so we believe that most likely we'll end up with combination therapies of one agent with another, not a head-to-head battle between agents. The good news about Vicromax is that it's a host-directed therapy, and it's against a pathway which viruses do not code for, and it starves the virus of an essential element it needs to replicate, and therefore we do not anticipate escape mutations happening at all, and that's shown by the broad spectrum of antiviral activity we see. This is important for this pandemic. It will be important for future pandemics, and it also will allow us to look at other viral infections using this. It's a platform drug, and this is another reason why we very much want to get it out there, develop it, and then determine what's the best way to utilize it, either as by itself or in combination with the other drugs that you've mentioned.
Thank you, Jerry. Should we move to the next question?
Our next question comes from the line of Hugh Marassa of Laidlaw & Company. Please proceed with your question.
Good morning, and congratulations on your new asset. My question is, I know that there's a lot of money the government's giving out. Have you applied for government grants at non-dilutive money?
This is Nick here. Yes, we're certainly looking at all options of where we can get sponsorship and money and investment from, so certainly that's on our radar screen.
Thank you.
Next question.
Our next question comes from the line of Jeremy Rowe of Integra. Please proceed with your questions.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. Thanks, Ken. So there's been a lot of talk about the work that's coming from Gilead and other companies. So in essence, the race is on. Are any of you familiar with these therapeutics, and why do you see Vicromax has an edge over them against this or any of the other therapies or potential therapies out there?
Hi, Jeremy. It's Nick again here. I'll answer part of that question and probably hand some of the detail over to Jerry. But basically, as Jerry already said, and I think we're all motivated by the fact that this is really an industry-wide life sciences healthcare attack really on the pandemic and thereafter. And we don't really see ourselves in head-to-head competition. We see ourselves much more in a synergistic situation. So the head-to-head comparison isn't so much as how could you use these drugs and solutions together. And that's really been the whole of our philosophy since beginning this company. Jerry, would you like to elaborate at all on that?
Thanks, Nick. As I'm talking to you. We are conducting in our laboratory experiments where we're combining our agent with other agents that we know have activity against the virus that causes COVID-19. Those experiments are going to read out very, very shortly, and this will be reported to the public once we have analyzed the data. But as I said before, because ours is a host-directed therapy, we do not expect that we will get resistant viruses emerging to our agent, and we also believe that it could prevent the emergence of resistant viruses to viral-directed antiviral therapies. So I agree with Nick. We don't look at the other drugs as competition, but more potential collaborators to be combined with our agent.
And I think another couple of important points are that the actual MMPD is a very broad-spectrum antiviral, and it's also an oral formulation, which helps in this current situation significantly. Okay, next question.
Our next questions come from the line of Kurt Kruger of Kruger Capital. Please proceed with your question.
Oh, hi, guys. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Oh, good. Thank you. I realize the focus of this call is on the Vicromax, but hope it's okay if I ask a question about the Pure EP. And Ken, this was meant to be such an important essentially the first full year of commercial launch of your product. And I realize it's a consultative type cell. Have you explored ways in which you can still move these boxes out to the field through teleconferencing and other means? Because I realize it is often more hands-on. And I know we had a nice conversation at the Cowan conference, which I guess is about a month ago. It seems like a few years ago. Lots happened. But, this, I think you were looking at maybe selling a couple dozen boxes this year. Can you give us a sense of how things are going?
Thank you, Kurt.
Yeah, I'll get it, Ken. Sorry, Ken.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Kurt, as you mentioned, we're all virtual now. We've been communicating with our sites and our centers. Our team has been collaborating with them. As you may know, we presented data. Dr. Andrea Natali did such an excellent job presenting data at the AFib Symposium in Washington, D.C. I believe it was January 22nd. And our team was on the road, thankfully, pretty much nonstop from that date through when the government said we couldn't travel anymore. So we've loaded the sales pipeline with a lot of in-person visitation, and we have now a very nice pipeline of interested parties that we're working through the process. Two categories that we're focused on in this hiatus are companies or hospital systems that are building new labs and or hospital systems that are doing retrofits and have budgets. So with that said, there are a number of those that fall into each category, and that we can be processing while this hiatus is lasting. It's anybody's guess when cases are going to start up again, but our whole team is prepared to be out there again aggressively, and we think we're going to have a very good year based on what we're seeing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question. Thank you very much. Next question, please.
Our next question has come from the line of Yale Jen of Laidlaw & Company. Please proceed with your question.
Hey, good morning, and thanks for taking the questions, and congrats on the development. Two quick ones. First of all, in terms of the mechanism of actions of the drug, I know you're going to publish something a little bit later, but any other sort of a color you can share? And I have another follow-up.
I'll hand that to Jerry, please. Could you help out with that, please?
We expect in the next 24 to 48 hours that on BioRxiv, our first public disclosure of what we have will be accessible online. The drug inhibits an enzyme called IMDPH, which is a a requisite enzyme in the pathway to make guanosine. And so when you inhibit this enzyme, the level of guanosine in the cell goes to much lower levels. It doesn't absolutely inhibit it. And in a state where the virus comes in and needs to replicate, it's starved of this requisite nucleoside, which is important for making RNA, and it can't replicate, which allows the cell's innate immune system, RIG and other things, to recognize that a foreign nucleic acid is in there and eliminate it. That's the mechanism. We know that this is most likely the major mechanism by which this works, because if you add guanosine to the tissue culture, when you do this, this is done with other viruses. We're now in the process of repeating this with the COVID-19 virus. You can eliminate the effect of the of MMPD.
Okay, great. And maybe a follow-up, which is that the study. I mean, the drug has been through clinical trials of, I believe, in the phase 2. So when you started the COVID-19 study that in May, would that be considered as a phase 1 or potentially 1/2, or how do you potentially categorize that?
Well, you're talking to a person who's developed a lot of drugs, and I personally, except for healthy human volunteers, which I'm very happy to call phase 1, I'd rather describe what type of study it is. It is a first-in-human study in patients who are affected. We're going to obtain a little bit of blood levels, so you could say it's a phase 1/2.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed, Jerry, and thank you for the question. Next question, please.
Our next question has come from the line of Robert Carlson of Janney Montgomery Scott. Please proceed with your questions.
Hi, guys. Just a real quick question. With every major drug company basically doing the same thing, how does BioSig compete at the FDA for space just to get in to see you? How does that work?
Thank you very much indeed, Robert. I'll start answering the question and then hand it across to Jerry. We are living in the middle of a pandemic and a national emergency right now, and quite honestly, the rule book as we see it is being changed every day. So I think there's a lot of companies going forward with various solutions, and we're seeing new decisions being made by the FDA every day in the way they approach this to allow them to get to testing in humans. I'll hand it over to Jerry now. How do you see it?
Even in normal times, the FDA does not discriminate between sponsors. That's what we are called. Whether we're startup, long established, small or large. In this time of national emergency, what has changed is that the FDA has created its own internal task force to rapidly review and either allow a drug to be treated for patients with this infection or not. But so far, our interactions with the FDA have been absolutely predictable, professional, and we're moving forward. And once we complete all the requisite things that are needed, we'll have an IND filed fairly quickly, and we'll be able to start our study.
Thanks a lot, Robert. Next question, please.
Our next question has come from the line of Scott Henry of Roth Capital. Please proceed with your questions.
Thank you, and good morning. And I guess somewhat related to the prior question, more from a patient standpoint, with a lot of compounds in development for coronavirus, how challenging is it to set up clinical trials, given all these resources going at it? If at all, I'm just curious your take on how easy or hard it is to set up these trials.
Thank you much indeed, Scott. Very good question. Jerry, maybe Dr. Bradley as well, maybe want to comment on that?
I think I'd like to defer to Dr. Badley since he's at the front line.
Okay. Dr. Badley, would you like to take Scott's question, please?
Nick, unfortunately, I think Dr. Badley had to run back to the clinic.
Okay.
Yeah. So one of our team, please answer.
Yeah, I'll what we're observing is that, yes, major, well-respected institutions are now receiving a variety of proposals to do clinical research with them. As Dr. Badley said during the opening remarks, he had over 50 proposals on his desk, and he is the person who's helping. He chairs a committee at the Mayo Clinic that has to decide which trials they want to do based on the promise of the agent as well as other factors. And when he received our proposal, we came to the top of the queue, and he said not only that he would like to work with us very closely to make this a reality at the Mayo Clinic. So to answer your question, it's really based on the science and the information behind the reagent, the design. The other aspects that is considered is how do you create a trial which is not disruptive to those who try to care for these ill people. So we've worked very closely to understand how the Mayo Clinic takes care of patients so that our trials are not disruptive, but we can generate the data that we will need to present to the FDA so we can move the drug forward into development.
Okay, great. Thank you for that color. Just a separate question. What should we be thinking about in terms of endpoints for these trials as they develop? Is this a viral load you're looking at, or are there clinical endpoints that we will be? And I imagine as you go further, that will change, that we should expect.
I'm not sure we're going to that level of detail yet, but Jerry, would you like to answer?
Sure. Just before the trial begins to enroll, we will file the trial into clinicaltrials.gov, which will lay out what we're doing and what we're looking at. We're going to be looking at a variety of endpoints, which include virus itself, viral shedding, clinical signs and symptoms. At the end of the day, a drug is usually only approved for what's called a clinical benefit, meaning if you ask the patient, are you better off by having been treated with whatever the agent is, if the patient says, yes, I feel much better, or whatever it is, the drug gets approved. If somebody's lab value changes just a tad, usually that doesn't lead to an approval. So we're looking at the spectrum holistically of what happens to patients who have COVID-19. And again, more will be revealed once we submit to clinicaltrials.gov.
Thanks a lot, Jerry, and thanks for the question. Next question, please.
Our next question comes from the line of Dr. Stephen Lepsky. Please proceed with your question.
Hi.
Good morning, Dr. Lepsky.
Good morning. Just an overall question. With what you know of the structure and the workings of the virus, how would a successful vaccine in the interim impact our medication? Do you see it as possibly working in conjunction with it, like Tamiflu, or what's your thoughts on that?
I'll make a comment and again hand to Jerry. I think that somebody's got a very heavy breathing noise coming through on the phone. Take a mute. I think the actual time to develop a vaccine, if you read around, is going to be at least a year to 18 months. So I think that's one element that, at least for the current pandemic, may or may not play in. But saying that, Jerry, have you any thoughts on its concurrent use with vaccines?
Sure. Let's assume that the situation is just like the flu right now, influenza. there are influenza vaccines out there which try to create a herd immunity to whatever emerging influenza virus is coming in. But if a person is sick, they'll then be treated with an antiviral Tamiflu to try to shorten and decrease the intensity of the illness that results from that virus. Even if there is a very good vaccine that emerges, there'll be a need for an antiviral as well. By analogy, if you just think a little bit, we had the SARS outbreak, which concerned many of us. We also had the MERS outbreak, which worried us. And now we have the new coronavirus, which is causing COVID-19. Those are all coronaviruses. And there's nothing special about our agent that says this will only work for coronavirus, the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus. So not that I wish it, but potentially in the future there'll be a new coronavirus which frightens us, and this drug will be available for it. So I just don't. I look at a vaccine as a way of protecting the population against a particular virus, but it's not a panacea. And I'm not even going to say that ours is the panacea either, but it will be a very, very strong adjunct to try to help people who are infected.
Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Dr. Lipsky. Next question, please.
Our next question comes from the line of David Levine of Trickle Research. Please proceed with your question.
Hi, this is kind of a conceptual question. I don't expect you to know everything that's sort of going on in the competitive landscape, but the question's come up several times. But I'm sort of thinking that if there's 50 therapies that have landed on Mayo's desk, doesn't the fact that you already have an established sort of safety protocol to this, doesn't that put you in a pretty good position? Now, I'm not saying the others don't, but it just seems it's hard for me to believe that 50 other therapies out there also have some kind of established safety protocol.
It's Nick here. I'll make a comment, and then again, maybe Jerry will. But yeah, I mean, I think that, one of the compelling elements for me to literally give up my day job and jump in with ViralClear was the fact, if you think about it, there's three driving forces to get some form of therapy out there to help patients. And the first one's safety, the second one's efficacy, and the third one is how quickly you can get the thing to the patients that need it. So when I was looking at what we had, and the fact that there was a phase 1 already completed and safety data, and also tested in both animals and humans, to me was highly compelling that here we had a molecule that in the lab was already showing distinct activity against coronavirus, and therefore the chance of success for this would be very high. And I felt that if we were going to do something and get there, then this particular molecule had a great chance of being there and being one of the first, and not only that, probably being one of the best for what it's good at. Jerry, do you have any comments?
No, I think you said it. The good news is that when patients were treated with this drug in the past, and many of them were treated for 6 months, adverse events that could make us scratch our heads and be somewhat concerned did not occur during the first month of therapy. We anticipate treating people for as short a period of time as 2 or 3 days to as long a period of time as 14 days. So we believe that the adverse event profile will be very good. But you do not know until you actually go into the clinic and treat patients with the disease that you're focusing on. So we will see.
Yeah. I think it's also part of the compelling nature of what we're doing to really absorb the fact that also Steve King, who is our Chief Operating Officer, was also running a separate business. And, Jerry, myself, and Steve, along with Ken, leapt in both feet to get behind this and really take it the distance. And if that shows some form of commitment about what we really think about this particular molecule, then hopefully that transmits. Anyway, next question, please.
There are no further questions at this time. I'll turn the floor back over to you for any closing remarks.
Well, this is Nick Spring again. Thank you very much indeed, everyone, for joining us on this call this morning. We're very grateful that you spent some time hearing about ViralClear and what to us is a tremendous opportunity for us to do something not only about the current pandemic, but also as we look out into the future, having a very broad spectrum, already taken antiviral that can be probably stockpiled and useful for dealing with any other threatened pandemics in the future. So we don't look upon this just as something as an opportunity for today, although we think we will be able to do something meaningful in the very near future. We also look upon this as a business that will have legs as we look into the future. So thank you very much indeed for your time. We appreciate it. Have a great day and stay safe.
This concludes today's conference. You may disconnect your lines at this time. Thank you for your participation and have a great day.